All right, so continuing on, we're going to put our motherboard in. So first things first, we got to put our backplane in. There it goes. Unlike a modern case where you have a little bit of a flex, this one you do not. So, okay, get those front panel connectors up out of the way. And alrighty, so take that out of the way. Alright, and you can tell that is a very good grade motherboard because it is a very thick PCB on there. Oh, okay. So, alright, so I'm going to take just the little clips for the network adapters real quick. Make sure our back panel button clears, and we are golden. All right. Okay, now just go ahead and put our screws in. All right. So we'll go ahead and run our motherboard screws in. All right, so there's that. Okay, so now if you look at this board and you notice, and you watch the big box video where we took the cooler out, this guy, when we took this cooler out of the other box, you notice that this socket is turned 90 degrees. Which for this particular system will be perfectly fine. So it's going to go in here like this. It's going to sit in here just like that. Now you can notice right away, especially if you watch that other video, because that other cooler was huge compared to this one. When we get the top cover on this, it actually will not, that other cooler would have zero chance of clearing and getting the lid on. So that's why we need this particular one. And this is the same cooler that I used in my other EPYC build, and works perfect. and for this particular machine. So it'll actually intake from here, actually exhaust through here, and then it'll actually exhaust through the power supply fan and out through the power supply and partially through this guy here. So with this flow through style, it actually works really, really well. So, all right. So there's that. So we're going to go ahead and get our chip installed. Okay, so here is our EPYC processor here. And we're going to set her there for a moment. Oh, and that one is screwed down, so we're going to have to unscrew that real quick. Okay, so open is 3, 2, 1. So actually, okay, I go ahead and lifts up, and then our plate lifts up, and then we can slide the pin protector out. So you can see there's our very expensive socket with a whole boatload of pins. I think it's like 7,000 pins or something like that. It's a lot. Okay, so take this guy and we just slide him on in there until it goes all the way down. Set it down to where it locks in. Set this down, and it should sit, the IHS should sit perfectly inside this upper mounting bracket, locking plate. So, and then we're going to go ahead and close it. There it goes. There we go. Can't tell you what the exact that's the first one. Torque spec is, but I do know it is tight. Okay. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so there's our chip. "16 cores, 32 threads of epic power." That's right. I know, I'm such a nerd. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and put our RAM in because If we put the RAM in now, it'll make it easier than if we try to do it later. If we try to do it later, basically I have to take the fans off of this to be able to get it all in there. So easier to do it now. There we go. Okay, so this sets up a little bit differently than the Threadripper. So the Threadripper, you probably didn't notice, or you couldn't see very well because it's black DIMMs on a black board. But on that one, you actually go the two closest slots and then skip a slot, if I'm correct. This one is actually a little different. This board actually sets up is the A1, B1, and then E1 and F1 slots. So I'm going to go ahead and just like this. Now with these, I always like to go, when they cooperate, straight down, and then I always like to go the auto locking side in first, and then the actual lock tab in last. So gives you a little better seat, I think. We need to do it this way. Less likely for the DIMM to back itself out of the slot. So, and you'll notice you'll hear a high-pitched click on this side when you push it in, and you hear a real low-pitched click when you put it in on this side. So that's one set. Okay, and that's it. There is 4 channels of 3200 megahertz RAM, which is effectively 6400 megabits. So, yeah, our RAM runs faster than clock speed. So on this, so awesome. Okay, which gives you a lot of data bandwidth and a ton of performance. So. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and we'll put our cooler on. And while we're doing that, I'm going to look this over here real quick and see how exactly I want to try and make this pretty for later. The last one, I actually ran it down the side here like this. I think we can do that again. So I think that'll work just fine. Actually, we won't need the extension. It's going to be closer than I thought it was. So we need rear fan 1, which is our top header right here. And while we're at it, we'll go ahead and plug this guy in. Let's see, this is front fan. Oh, front fan 1, which will go right there. And there's actually a little bit of a gap right here between the cage and the outside of the case. And so we run it in through there, and then it'll actually hold our cables down. And then perfect. I can go in there like that. It'll be nice and tucked out of the way, because then it won't be in the way of our PCI Express 16 slot. Okay, now we'll have to take this guy and we've got to rotate this fan. So with Noctua, this is actually fairly simple. Yes, we just gonna rotate it 90 degrees like that. So which we just have to take retaining wires and rotate them like so. Just like that. And then I'm just going to make sure we get them in the same spot in the fin stack here. One like that, and one like that. And that's it. And everything's on the same side. Okay. Make sure this is the wide side, narrow side, wide side, narrow side. Perfect. Okay. Then, alright, we're going to need our Y cable. Is that the regular Y cable? Yep. And we're just going to plug this in here, just like that. And then that'll go on our CPU fan 1 right there. So, now before we do that, we need to get that on there. So, I'm actually not going to use Noctua. I have a little bit of Noctua thermal paste left, which is their NT-H1. But I don't think it's enough to do a whole EPYC chip. So we're going to use the Arctic MX4 that I've used on the Threadripper build. And a lot of people do an X and then do dots. My personal preference for this is actually a 9-dot pattern. I always make the middle one just a little bit bigger than the rest, because that's the one that's really going to squeeze the most. And there we go. Okay, let me just set her on there. I'm just kind of wiggling around because I want to make sure we get really good coverage on this, because on this particular unit, you've got a center I/O die right here, and then you'll have, I believe on this one there's so you would have 2 CCDs, 2 CCDs, 2 CCDs, and 2 CCDs. This particular one, I believe it's just one here and one here on either side. So we're just going to add a dot there, and a dot there, and just a tiny little dab right here. Really want to make sure we got good coverage, because the better coverage you have, especially with this particular cooler, because this cooler is a full coverage cooler, and so the better coverage you have, the better transference of heat you're going to have, and cooler the unit is going to run overall. And yeah, now we're good. We got good coverage now. So, all right. So now we need our special little Noctua Allen key here. And just start the threads all the way around. Make sure we're all nice and lined up here. Okay. And I like to go in a Z pattern. So I'm not trying to go all the way down either. I'm just going 3.5 turns. And this should be the seat. Now this particular cooler, the mounting mechanism has springs on it, so it'll keep us from over torquing it down on the IHS, because especially on this particular design, it's very sensitive to pressure. So, okay, all right, so there's that, and yep, I goofed, but that's okay. That's the one beautiful thing about this particular cooler, is we can just slide this off. And drop our fan cables down the side right here. And you're probably going, isn't it going to introduce noise into the system or into the memory or something like that? No. I have never run into that problem. Like I said, I did the exact same thing on the other EPYC system that I did, and it works perfect like this. So. All right, and voila. Okay, so there's that. Okay, so then we're going to take this guy, and we're just going to lay him over here. And we're going to go into CPU 1, which is right here. Just like that. Okay. And looks like I'll take a zip tie. I'll tie these two together later. All right, well, there's that part. Cool. So, all right, so that's the hard part. Now, we'll go ahead and put our M.2s in. So every motherboard always comes with its own M.2 screws. So we'll go ahead and get these installed real quick. Alright, so Evo number 1, right here. Now the one little trick I've always noticed with M.2 is you're really going to make sure it is fully seated in that slot. If it's not, it can be out by a millimeter and it will not connect. And it will not recognize in the BIOS. And M.2 is not hot swappable, so it's got to show up in the BIOS before it will ever show up in Windows. So unless it's SATA. Now if it's a SATA M.2, instead of having one little key slot right there, it would actually have two key slots, and it would look, and in those you can hot swap, because it'll actually run on the SATA side of the PCI Express chipset, but these are PCI Express direct. So yeah, you definitely got to make sure that they are in there good. So, okay. Alright, so 2 terabytes of nVMe SSD. So this is actually going to be effective as 1 terabyte, because we're going to actually mirror RAID these in the operating system, so that way we have automatic failover redundancy. So in case we lose one for whatever reason, the machine won't crash, and it'll just keep on chugging. And I do it through the operating system anymore, because one, the RAID functionality inside of Windows, especially Server now, is so good that you really don't have to worry about it causing a lot of overhead. But also two, we've got so much processor power on this now that it works perfectly fine. Plus, you don't have to worry about the RAID controller going out on the motherboard or anything like that. So, like you would in a traditional RAID system, if we were using hardware RAID. So, there we go. 2 nVMe M.2s. Now I'm going to take and I'm going to adjust this one just a hair, because you probably can't notice it, but the pins are slightly sticking out on this one side. Make sure they're nice and evened up, so that way once we kick this on, we really don't have to mess with it too much. Okay, so there's that. And you want these snug, they don't have to be super tight. If you make them super tight, you're probably gonna strip them out, and that would be bad, because you might have some M.2s are $500–600, and your motherboard might be $500–600 on top of that. So yeah, bad day if you strip one of those out. Okay, so we're down to the video card. Alright, there's our video card. Alright, so we're going to take the fancy plastic off of it. Oh, it's so pretty. Okay. Now, one special fan might be looking at this card and going, that card looks really familiar. Well, if it looks really familiar, it's because it's the same card that's in your machine. So, okay. And make sure we take the little protector off. And then it will just slide right on in there. Click and done. So there you go. Alright, so we're going to grab a couple of chassis screws here so we can secure that guy in place. Okay, there's that. Make sure we're nice and locked in, which we are. And all of our pins are recessed, so we're good there. Awesome. Okay, so there's that. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to shift this over a little bit. Okay. So now we're going to open up the front here. Nope, a little further. I have a box that's in the way. We're going to open up our hot swap here, and we're going to go ahead and load our drives. Now, to give you an idea how much these drives weigh, each one of these drives is about 2 pounds. Probably close to that. So we got 4 here. We're going to add roughly about 8 pounds to our machine. There's one. You can see as I load this, the reason why we do hot swap for these, because one, if a drive's going to fail, over a period of time, it's going to be the mechanical drive because it's got all the moving parts. 2, you don't necessarily want to have to shut the machine down to be able to swap the drive out or open it up if you don't have to. So with this, all we have to do is open the front, look and see what drive is bad in the system, open the ejector, and it just pops right out. And of course, this one's trayless, so unlike a Dell or an HP, where you'd actually take this, put it into a tray, and screw it all in, and then slide it in, this literally can just pop it open, take the old drive out, swap the new drive in, be in, out, and done in a few minutes without any issue. And that's it. They're all in. So if you ever had to take one out, we just open it up. And it's actually geared in the back, so it'll actually pop the drive open so we can actually get a hold of it. So that's it. Voila. Okay, so now we get to cable it. And then we're basically done.